Good afternoon, Miss Malyotti and Miss Wei. So welcome to my COVID-19 classroom at home. So I'm going to start my presentation with explaining what reading is. Okay, so reading is more than just the decoding of signs and symbols into sounds and words. Reading is a message-getting, problem-solving activity which increases in power and flexibility the more it is practiced. Okay, so let us have a look at the two main reading approaches. So we have the top-down and the bottom-up approach. So we are going to start with the bottom-up approach. Okay, so the bottom-up approach is also called the behaviorist approach, or the parts to whole approach, or the skills achievement theory. So this theory accentuates the development of sub-skills, which gradually increases in complexity. So I will apply this method in my classroom when learners start with letter word recognition. Then they understand the words, then they understand the sentences, and then they understand the whole. Okay, so let us look at the top-down approach. Okay, so the top-down approach is also called the psycholinguistic approach, or the wholes to parts approach, or the sense-making theory. Because the premise is that reading forms a meaningful whole in which meaning and sense lie at the bottom or at the foundation. So I will apply this method in my classroom when learners first understand the text, then they understand the sentences, then they understand the words, and then the letters and sounds contained in the words. So let's look at the differences between the top-down and the bottom-up approach. So the behaviorist approach, or the bottom-up approach, moves from the parts to whole, and the psycholinguistic moves from the whole to the parts. So the behaviorist approach says that reading is a combination of detached skills, whereas the psycholinguistic approach says that reading is global. All the skills are implemented simultaneously to make sense of the written text. So the behaviorist approach says that reading is text-driven, which means that the learners do not contribute to the text. Whereas the psycholinguistic approach says that reading is comprehension-driven. This means that learners use their prior knowledge to make sense and to make predictions about the text. So the behaviorist approach lastly says that reading out loud is essential for beginner readers, whereas the psycholinguistic approach prefers that the readers must read silently to form comprehension and reflection. Okay, so let us look at the balanced approach. Okay, so the balanced approach is the first important thing that we need to know is that the balanced approach is not a reading method. It's only an orientation with respect to reading and writing. Okay, so this method is important because the teacher can choose the teaching method or strategies depending on the needs of learners and how fast they progress. So a balanced method is important because it gives the teacher a chance to reflect on what he or she is teaching and the strategy that he or she is using. Okay, now let me stop to bore you with the mouthful of information that I have. Let's look at some relevant examples. Okay, so some relevant examples that I have is I'm going to use a flatbook strategy to explain the story of the hare and the tortoise. I think that we all know the story about the hare and the tortoise. So let us first look at how we can apply the bottom-up approach in the flatbook strategy. Okay, so when the teacher is teaching the hare and the tortoise story, the teacher can first start by, before the lesson starts, you can encircle the key vocabulary, like what is a hare, and what is a tortoise. Okay, so the teacher starts by explaining the key vocabulary to the learners, like what is a hare, what is a horse, what is a tortoise, not a horse. So then the teacher starts to explain the words, and then she starts to put these words into sentences by starting to read the story about the hare and the tortoise, and then the learners will get the main idea of the story, which is that you should not be egocentric, you should rather be thankful for all your talents. Now, when we look at the top-down approach, the teacher will start by reading the story of the tortoise and the hare. Then she will start to examine the sentences with the learners, and then she will look at the words like hare and tortoise, and then she will look at the sounds and letters that is contained within these words. So a balanced approach can also be used in the flapbook strategy. So this is when for example, the flapbook strategy, the vocabulary, when learners are learning the vocabulary, the bottom-up approach may work better, but when they learn the setting of the story, the top-down approach may be better. So it depends on the learner's needs. Thank you so much.